All right. So since we all know that you have run a very successful business, and then from the very beginning, Jill, I'm sure when you start to sketch the dream of your own business, and you have a regional plan, and then for the 20 years, I'm curious to know that what you have considered according to that original plan that you achieved, and what you have missed.
Well, I wouldn't say I missed much, except when I started, this was 20 years ago, before the internet really was important, especially in retail. It was really brick and mortar at that time. And now we're seeing a complete flip. We're seeing a flip. I mean, you see it all over America with big companies, that are closing their brick and mortar and going completely online. My business is not really a business that you can really sell only online, but you need both. And I think that is the biggest challenge I face now, and that's one area which maybe instead of hiring people as salespeople, I should hire a really good webmaster who does a really good job in running that part of the business, because that is where I can expand. I can't expand here locally. I mean, you have so many people. We're not how can I put it, in the EU, we're not international. It's difficult to ship, it's difficult to import. I mean, you know the stories of import, export. So you have to think about your marketplace. How many people are you going to reach? Internet, now you reach the whole world. So that is something, I think that was one thing I really missed. And I really didn't invest in that properly. Now that's something I'm going back into.
Right.
But,
so what part is that you really feel that satisfied? You think that's considered a big achievement?
For me, I was very lucky. I think it's also about, when you start a business, how lucky, are you going to be showing something new, innovative? I was very lucky to start in a business at a time when it was just starting up. I was lucky to have the best of the best. I was lucky to be able to have them on exclusive basis in my store. And these people went on to become mega known and very important designers. So I was sort of riding on their coattails. So I think it's important to identify, that you are really unique in that way. And I was at the time. Now I have a lot of copycat, like in everything you have copycat businesses popping up. I have next door to me somebody doing or trying to do what I do. So it's
Right.
you have to deal with that kind of thing.
Talk about the customer relations. Because I've been to Jill's place, like her boutique, for many times. She has maintained excellent customer relations with her customers. And it's like remains a mystery. I'm gonna tell you a small story about her. Is that once the time that I went to her shop and then we talk about something, like I don't even remember what piece of jewelry. So I told her my dilemma was, should I buy it, should I not buy it? And then Jill told me, she said, Jessie, don't buy it. I was like, huh? She said, you know what, drop it. Just go. You don't buy it. I was like, why? She said, obviously you're not really interested. Don't buy. Go home. Think about it. If you're interested, you can come back. So then that was really impressive because I never heard a seller to me to say, don't buy it. Everybody say, buy it. This is good. Take it, right? So, I mean, I am impressed by that. And I'm also sort of want to know, how do you maintain that customer relationship?
Well, that's very interesting because that's where I have my I would say my winning points. How can I compete with a big company like Cartier or Richmond Group or any of the big designers or big stores you have in Geneva? The only way I can compete is with service. My service, for example, we have a free service, repair, we have all kinds of different service. We will drop off, we will pick up, we will ship free. We do all kinds of things because that's the only way we compete. The other issue, what you're talking about, is something specific to the type of designers I work with, where we don't try and push a sale. Because if you push a sale, you make one sale, right? And if the person is not happy with what they buy, they will always look at this and say, yeah, I'm not really happy about it, but I bought it, and they might never come back. So what we want to keep is the customer satisfied. We want you to come in and have a feel-good factor when you leave, that you feel happy with what you bought, you feel that's something that you did well, that you invested some money in, because you are investing money, and that you're going to be happy for a long time with the piece that you bought. So it's important for me that if I see the client is hesitant, I would rather they don't buy it and think about it, and if they really want it, I can say, look, I'll put it aside, think about it, and come back. And it usually works for them, and it works for me. So it's about how you develop your relationship with your customers, if you want them to be always satisfied, or if you just want to make the instant sale, but maybe you don't keep the relationship up. So.
Right. All right, thanks, Jill. I mean, taken from there, to say that, look, you know, her Jill's shop actually is in the very center of the old town. Very good location. So, can I ask that if your customers mainly about repeated customers or like the newcomers or tourists passing by? So what's the majority?
Well, I would say today, when I started, I had a lot of tourism. It was a different situation. People came to Geneva. It was still the time of the, you know, banks and, you know, having your money in accounts. And so the husbands used to see the accounts and give like bills to their wives to go spend money. And all that is finished. That's all gone. So now we're working on repeat customers. A lot of my customers are repeat.
Right.
I have customers all over the world. I'm a destination shop. I don't know if some of you, when you travel, you go to maybe, I don't know, France or Paris, you want to go to that boutique. Or you want to, when you're in Stockholm, you want to go to that boutique. Well, when people come to Geneva, I'm a destination boutique. I have people coming from Australia, from Egypt, from Japan, from Pakistan. I have clients from all over. My client base, I would say, is mainly focused on women. It's mainly focused on women. It's a place that women can come in and buy for themselves. It's not the place that, you know, the husbands have to go and buy, like, you know, or purchase, you know, big items. We do have big items, but most of my clients are women. And I would say that women who are traveling, we have female tourists that come in. We don't sell much, I would say, to like the tourists that come to Geneva. We have very high-end tourists who usually are who are looking for the brands, who identified my store as having that brand. And that's how I got some of my best clients, is that they go online and they look, they identify the brands, and then they come in.
Jill, when you talk about that, the good service that you mentioned about like one of the strengths or core competence of your business is about providing the best service. And the service, for example, the repairing or renew. So how did you find that as a strength to be very competitive in today's business world? Because a lot of other competitors, they do the same, right?
No, they don't. I base myself on the Hermès, or the old Hermès format, which is Hermès used to guarantee everything you bought from them, and they used to repair everything free. That was their old format.
Right.
I don't think they do that today. Many of the watch companies, also in the old days, I'm talking, you know, in the 60s and 70s, that was their policy. Of course, as the markets grew, they could no longer do that. Now, you know, when you go in to service your watch at Cartier, they give you what they call a plan of how much you should spend for either your battery or your strap or whatever. And it's all changed. But we decided that we worked with our own jeweler here locally.
Right.
And we have a set fee, monthly fee with him.
Ah, I see.
So it's like I'm paying a salary of a full jeweler. But on the other hand, and this is something I wanted to stress about the small business, is that if any of you go into small businesses, you know what's important is to keep your overheads low, right? So we were lucky where I am, my rent is very low.
Oh, still now for the shop?
It was a fluke. That's why I said it's also opportunities, you know. When you start up your business, if you're going to spend a lot for your rent, a lot for your employees, you might as well not do any business and just go to the beach. I mean, frankly, you're only going to be spending to improve your employees' life, not necessarily your own. We were very lucky to have a place which was great location, very cheap. So I decided to invest in services. And that's where I pay almost a full salary of a jeweler at my jewelers to do service all our pieces. And we have instant service. So example, I have a customer coming in the morning from, let's say, Italy, and she wants this piece of jewelry, but it's the wrong size. We size it and deliver it to her by the afternoon.
I see.
So it's not like you're waiting 3 weeks. It also stimulates the sale, because if you can, the more that you can give them a better service, the more it stimulates the sale.
Right. So a couple of days ago that I discussed with a couple of the students in here, and then we talk about what's the relationship between being lucky and being successful. And then, right? Sure. So, so you mentioned like in the early conversation to say, look, you know, when I started, I was lucky, and then I was lucky. So several times. So I wanted to really dig in on that to say, so when you talk about lucky, when you talk about your luckiness, what do you mean? Can you give us an example?
Well, I think luck is also where we are, all of us. We are born in a sort of better environments, maybe some of you less, that have strife and war and situations, but we're actually very privileged people to be living in the times how we are, the way we are. So that's our first luck, you know.
So the era.
Yeah. So that's the sort of luck to be born here, and luck to be having, you know, also the luck to having your own business, and the luck to have the means to start up your own business and do this. So there's a lot of factors. I would say luck is part of it, but I would also say to you that you have to add the hard work.
Right.
I put in the beginning a lot of hours. There is no also job hierarchy. You know, I sweep the floors if I have to. I mean, you know, I don't expect my assistant to do it or somebody else to do it. I do it. Everybody does, you know, everything in my business.
Right.
So it's also work. It's luck being in a certain area, luck being in a place, luck having the designers I had at the time I did, luck that they liked me and I liked them.
Right.
And you know, work hard. I think work hard goes hand in hand with luck. You can't just say, okay, I'm lucky. I made a great movie. You know, I'm a great star, and then just sit back and wait for things to happen.
Sure. From the startup, you said your business until now. That have you ever experienced any crisis or difficult times? If you did, can you tell us a little more about that? And how did you solve it? Mm-hmm. Thank you.
There is, in every business and every life, you're going to come across crises, and we did have a crisis. Our crisis, we're still coming out of it now, but what happened, I don't know if many of you know that in 2015, the Swiss franc was parity with the euro. I don't know if you knew that. There was fixed, right, at 120. On January 15th, 2015, all of a sudden, the government, without forewarning, took the peg off, and the euro fell 30% in one day. For people who have businesses, you know, it was quite dramatic.
Right.
We lost 30% of our clients immediately because everybody went to France or to Italy to buy. At the same time, and this is something I think what happens in a crisis, it's always a combination of elements. It's never one thing. That happens. You know, my assistant, who was like my really right-hand man, I mean, she was like my right part of the brain. You know, I just had a point and she would know what I wanted.
Right.
She decided to leave and go to live in Brazil, so I felt like, you know, a limb of mine had happened. And this was, you know, accumulating. And then on the top of that, I had a personal reset. I divorced in the middle of everything, so I had to concentrate on my paperwork for my divorce. So all the things accumulated. And then I said to myself, why am I doing all this business? You know, I mean, you know, I'm losing clients now. The money is difficult. People are shopping elsewhere. I have personal setbacks, and I thought to myself, well, you know what? I'm going to close.
Right. Wow. In 2016,
you know. And then I said to myself, you know, I have 20 years experience in the shop. I have 40 years experience in business, and I'm not going to waste it. What I did was change the focus, change the attitude, go from feeling sorry for yourself to feeling great about yourself. Go to say, well, what is it that I can change that really can make the difference? And now I have a whole project for 220, because you know you still have to program yourself. So I think that is important to change your attitude. When you see things are going bad, maybe just sit back a moment and say, okay, what can I do to improve or change? And I think that is like a big, not really learning curve for me, but it was also something that, you know, had to come with inside you. Somebody can't say to you, you know, do this or do that, because you're in a situation where you can't see it.
Right. And Jill, I mean, since you joined that mentorship board for the class, and then this is also our pioneer sort of project, which have been already been supported by the dean, by the president, and then that you are generously offered help to our students. But in your life, have you received any mentorship or advising, something from a friend or from other people or from your?
I think you learn everywhere you work. I've worked a lot. I've had people, either teaching me the jewelry business, the stone business. I've had people being very generous. When I first wanted to study gemology, my father thought that was awful. Like, what is this? Where are you going to go? What are you going to do with this? So he refused to pay for my studies. And a friend of his came one day and at the time plunked $10,000 on the table and said, now you have no excuse not to do it.
For you?
Yeah.
You were lucky, huh?
So, those are people that mark you in your life. I also, you learn. I was working for Sotheby's. I worked for myself in America. I moved to America and became I started a small business in America. And so you learn all of these things. And I was lucky that somebody once said, I had a partner, and this is a very funny story in America. And I was a young girl. I was buying gems in Thailand and Hong Kong, and I was sort of out there.
Right.
I thought, I'm going to change the world, which didn't really happen. But anyway, I was out there buying gems, and I went back to LA where I had my office, and I said, I really need a salesperson. So I called up the school where I went, the GI, and I said, do you have like a salesperson that could come? And a guy came, and I didn't know him from Adam, and he seemed like a nice guy. Right. So I gave him $150,000 worth of gems.
Wow. And
he left. And I called up my girlfriend, and I said, this is funny. I just gave this guy $150,000 gems. And she said, are you mad? The guy's never going to come back. I said, well, if he comes back, we'll be best friends. And he did, and we became best friends, and I still work with him today. He's a supplier of he became a very, very big diamond dealer, which was very nice. And he supplies me with all my diamonds if I need diamonds for private clients and things like that. So, that's luck. I mean, he could have just walked off with the gems and never seen him again.
Was that just your gut feeling at that point to say, okay, so I give you the money, or something sort of rationale behind that?
One thing is, previously in business, honor was very important. Your handshake was very important. Your world was these things have all changed, but I was brought up with that kind of ethics. You trust people, and, a handshake, word of mouth is important. This today has all changed. I think that you have to sort of do your due diligence now.
Right.
So.
And Jill, what do you consider as an entrepreneur? What's your strength?
As an entrepreneur? Hard work.
Hard work.
Knowledge. I think that I'm always, this summer I went to Gublin, who is a top gemologist in Switzerland. I think that's always keeping up to date.
So constant learning.
Constant learning is important. I'm always learning, whether it's by books or by classes.
Right.
And you learn from you. I'm happy to come here today and learn from you. It's important for me. That's why I'm doing this, is also to learn from other people, see how they see the world. Sometimes when you're in your business, you're in your bubble, and you can't see how other people think or what they feel. So that's what I hope to get back from you today.
Right. So you have, I summarize, have hardworking, have constant learning, try to train your expertise in that certain area, and then also trying to get information from around the environment.
Absolutely.
As a owner of the business, when you're hiring people, you mentioned that you have your assistant, you have salespeople, or some of those people. What qualities you looking for? So what sort of people you want to hire?
Well, I'm looking for more of a human quality. I don't look for either young, old. It's just a quality I find in people that are, for me, it doesn't matter if you know the business. I can teach you the business. I can hire somebody who's really good at car sales or tire sales or sells carpets or whatever. They have to understand sales. Sales is important.
Right.
You have to understand the client. The client is king. You have to understand that you don't talk above and beyond the client. All these things. So if you're good in sales, that is something. But I also look for the human side, because many people come into a store and tell their story. So you can't just brush them off and say, well, it doesn't interest me, sorry, I got work to do. You have to sort of listen to their stories and stuff. So you have to mix that quality. I was very spoiled. I had an amazing, you knew my assistant who was amazing. Who was
Alexia.
Alexia.
Yeah.
And she was an art student. And she came to me and fantastic. And we grew together. We did everything together. And she was also able, later on, to be able to do the buying. Because I do all the buying, but I also want to have feedback. I think feedback is important. And sometimes you can't get it right all the time, and sometimes somebody says to you, are you sure? I mean, this is a lot of money. You sure you want to spend that kind of money on there? And then makes you think, So
Right.
when I hire somebody, I want somebody who is sort of open and educated. I find that often people who come from the sort of art world or music world have that sort of sensitivity.
Right.
Because I am in a sort of art world, per se.
So being sensitive,
Yeah.
being humane in the way.
Yeah,
right?
sensitive
Being
also
good.
to the materials you're using. I mean, okay, it's not the same thing as selling, if you like cars and you sell cars, you have to like what you do. I mean, you can't just say, I'm going to sell cars because, my dad sold cars. If you don't like cars, you won't be able to be a good salesperson.
Right.
And you see that in business today. A lot of people who are in business are technocrats. They come through a business school, but they don't necessarily like what
they're doing.
The materials they're selling or whatever.
Right.
So you see that a lot in the fashion world today.
I see. And Jill, if you could choose the second time, are you gonna still choose this business, this whole sector, or are you gonna do something else?
I don't know. I would. When I was younger, I wanted to become an actress. Another one that my father vetoed. I thought that would be fun. I love music and musical comedy. I think that today there's a difference between your day job and what your passions are. In my time, there was no choice. You had to get a job and go out and work. So a lot of people today, for example, the girl who works for me now is a very good quality photographer, but she needs a day job. So, maybe I should have had a day job doing something else and
Right.
acting on the side. It depends what your needs are. And what, some people want to have a lot of money and accumulate. Some people just want to have a job and enjoy their life, so.
And what do you find the most satisfaction from the job you have? I mean, the work you have now.
I'm very lucky. I travel to extraordinarily lovely places, and then I meet wonderful people, and we have wonderful evenings together and discussing different things. And I go to India quite a lot. I go to Jaipur, and this is a learning place for me. And I'm able to go to very interesting places, and I get invited to interesting places.
Right.
So that's really the high point.
For the
business. The low point is doing the paperwork.
The low point to do the paperwork. Okay. Okay. Shall we move a little bit to the financial side? Actually, I didn't really give this question prepared to Jill, but so I'll just tap into it for a bit. So when you started, how did you get the business founded?
Well, I was lucky. I had my own financing. I started with, I tell you truthfully, 50,000 francs, which would give me 1 year of rental. I didn't have an employee. I did everything myself. And I took out a small loan to do the decoration, because actually that really changed. People said to me, why did you spend so much money for the decoration? But that actually makes the difference in my store.
Right.
So that was money well spent, and I'm still today reaping the benefits. So I started with enough money for a year, thinking that that's about what I needed, and I was instantly successful. I paid off my loan, and I also paid off every month all my expenses.
I see.
Keeping in mind, my expenses were very low. I did not take a salary. Okay? So I had, the rent, the phone, this kind of thing, and it was very low. So I was able immediately to make a profit, and then it grew and grew and grew.
Sure. All right, so since we have limited time, I'm only gonna ask one last one, and then open the floor to them, and then many of them I can't wait. So since this is a module of small business management, and then all of them, they have their dreams to open their business sooner or later. So if you can give 3 pieces of the advice to them, what would that be?
Well, actually, I thought about it a lot, and it's true. There's a lot of things that you can think about. I think I sort of mentioned it. It's to love your products. I mean, first of all, you really have to like what you're selling, and to be ready to work hard. You can't just say, well, it's 6 o'clock, I'm going to the beach. That doesn't work.
You can't, huh?
I stay as long as there's a client. If a client comes in at 6:30 or 7, I stay. So you have to be ready to do that. You can't just say, this is a small business. You don't have tons of employees. So that's, I would say keep your overheads low. Don't try and expand too quickly. And then I would say that, follow your gut. Your instincts never lie. And at the same time, if you're not successful, know when to quit. Because if you're just pouring in money, the purpose of business is to make money. It's not to just enjoy your life. So if you're not there to make money, go and become an artist or do something else. But if you're in a business, you're there to make money, doing something you like. So if it's not working, be honest with yourself. Stop. I've had to close down a business now. I had another business, which was a nail bar, which was not my business. I financed it, and I realized after 3 years we weren't making money, and I said, "Stop! This is you got to stop it. Otherwise you just
lost that money."
So I think that's important. I think those are the 3 things that you have to really remember: work hard, keep your overheads low, and know when to quit if it doesn't work.
Right. Thank you, Jill.
You're welcome.
All right. So
thank you.
All right. So let's open the floor to the classroom. Any one of you, you can also feel free to grab some food to eat, or Jill, have some tea. So anybody want to have any questions, please ask. And then knowing that we're recording, so Mo's gonna probably put you some phones or devices to recording, okay? Yeah. All right. So louder, be louder, all right? Okay. Leo? You start? Okay.
So I'm also an international relations student, so I was curious to understand, you said how when you did 6 months in the UN, you didn't like it, but you didn't consider, for example, trying some other international organization or something else that was more focused to what you studied?
That when Sotheby's comes and offers you a job, a high-level job, you take it. It was opportunity. Had I not had that job, sure, I would have gone and looked maybe at the UNHCR, maybe I would have gone to, I was working for an NGO, which was international jurists and lawyers. So I was sitting there listening to rapporteurs, which was interesting. But I'm not going to get anywhere with that. Where am I going to go? So here was a really good job offer with a good salary, interesting, seeing great things. When you're offered that kind of job, I was interviewed by the CEO in New York, so it was very, it's very good for your CV. So I would say to you, if you have, it's true, you can go into anywhere. Once you have that diploma, you don't have to stay in international relations. You can become a CEO of a corporation or work in a hospital, or of course you can't do medicine or law, but you can do a lot of things. So I think it works with what comes your way. Don't miss the opportunities.
Any other questions? Yes, Marvin, please.
So I have some experience in exporting and importing, but my question is, would you consider buying emeralds and selling them in Switzerland to be a profitable business for such a young entrepreneur as myself?
Well, the one thing with stones, you really have to know your stones. You can't, it's not like buying tires or cars. You really have to know what you're buying. Emeralds is a very, very tricky business. I could go on 3 hours explaining to you emeralds to you, I would say to you, if you really want to do emeralds, do a course. Go to the GIA, do an colored stone course by correspondence, do something like that, because you really have to know your stuff. It's a very, very competitive business also. You're dealing with people from South America, from Africa today. Big corporations like Gemfields are the leaders in that field. So obviously when you go into a field, you learn about it. It depends how much money you're willing to risk. But I would say before you do anything, learn about the material, because and emeralds is especially tricky.
Question? Yeah. Oh.
Ladies first, please. Ladies, madam.
Anna, please. Yeah.
So as a business owner, we have to make a lot of priorities because there's not enough time for everything. So I'm wondering, like, what kind of sacrifices did you have to make along the way to be where you are today?
Very question.
Yeah.
I think it pertains a lot to women because this is where we have a little bit of an issue. I didn't have children, but had I had children, I think I would have had a bit of a problem with my life because I couldn't sort of hop on a plane and go to New York and hop on a plane and go to India. You know, you can't just do that. So there are priorities, I would assume, for women in today's business cycle. Having said that, I don't think it's a hindrance either. I think that the priorities is what you make. You know, I have had a few spouses. And now I lay down the law. You know, I said, I'm not home until 8:30. I'm not going to make dinner. Okay, so these are, you know, issues that do come up once in a while. And then I give time elsewhere, you know. So I say 2 days a week I don't work. So I dedicate my 2 days a week to my family life or to a sport or to something I want to do. So that's the priorities. I think that it's more of an issue for women today in the work field. I don't know how corporations today are dealing with it. If you're going to get, you know, free, how can I put it, cash, you know, this sort of thing, and it's still a problem. So I would think that you have to define yourself, you know, how many hours you want to work. I work on a Saturday also, so that means the weekend is moved. My weekend is Sunday and Monday. So if you have your spouse who works Monday to Friday, or your partner, then your weekend is kind of messed up. So you have to sort of discuss this. So it's all a, you know, give and take. But it is an issue, I would say.
Thank you for telling us your story and how you made it to today. I just had two questions. My first question is that are you grateful and happy today that you followed your father's advice on not becoming an actress? Like the parental advice, did it play a big role, like that you followed their advice, or that today you have your business set and that maybe if you followed that path, I don't know, do you ever think about it that you're grateful for your...
You know, I think today actually now maybe I'm a retirement. If I decide to retire, if I do, maybe it's something I'll pursue. Why not? You know, I think that you have to, today young people have it harder and easier. That is, in my time there was little tolerance for anything that didn't produce something. You know, your parents said you have to become a lawyer, a doctor, a dentist. These classical fields no longer work the same way. I have one nephew who's a footballer, okay, and one who's a musician. These are not traditional jobs. But they're today often jobs are going to pay. A footballer earns much more than most people I know. So you can't really say, you know, what is going to be successful or not. I would say if you really like what you do, then you're happy to put in those hours. My nephew worked 6 hours a day just on his physical body since the age of 4. This is what people don't realize when you're in a high-level sport. You know, the sacrifices. He doesn't eat things he's not allowed to eat Nutella, and you know his diet is very regimentated, like ballet dancers. You know, so it's if you're ready to make that sacrifice, why not? I would say to you, I guess I was not ready to make the sacrifice to become an actress, and probably my father would have cut me off and I would have had to live in squalid rooms in London or God knows where, and I was maybe not ready to do that.
Yeah.
So, it depends what you want to do. If you're ready to follow in a family, does your family have a business, or
Yes.
what is your family business?
Logistics.
In like a logistics?
Logistics in
In
what?
what?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Is it like a DHL, or is it an internet, or what?
It's just logistics, miss. That's it.
It's maybe that I don't understand what
might be-
logistics
No, I
do.
don't get. Solomon, can you give an example? So, for example,
Like regional logistics of the Silkway, like Silk Road.
Oh, really?
I see. Okay.
That's interesting.
Mm.
So would you follow in their footsteps and
No,
want to do?
no.
No.
That's why I need to know now if I should.
No,
listen
because
to my
it's
father.
interesting. You see, that's an edge business, or an edge. You've got something in your family, and my family were in the steel business. And I regret to this day, I didn't take up the opportunity to work in the steel business in a way.
Really?
American steel has gone down.
We were in a different branch. We were in recuperation, which is, they were precursors to all this sort of, what do they call it?
What?
Recycling and all of this. So it was interesting, and I turned my nose up it, and my brother stayed in the business and did very well. And now with hindsight, I think my life would have been a little easier business-wise. It was interesting business. Maybe I would have done something interesting with it. I mean, sometimes you have opportunities that you can't see now because these are unique niche. I mean, how many people work on the Silk Road?
Right.
Not many.
All right.
Maybe there's a different thing you could do there. Or logistics. I don't know. Is it moving things from A to B on the Silk Road?
Yes,
or?
yes. It's on the road of that. The Silk Road from India to till Baku to
It's
Azerbaijan.
fantastic.
There's 3 ways. Yeah.
It's fantastic. I mean, even if you take people walking there.
All right.
Sorry,
Sammy has a.
Sammy?
You said earlier that business in the ethics and let's say the integrity of people has diminished since your time. I wanted to understand what you meant by that.
Well, in the old days, I would say that, I hate to say this, but everybody would know everybody, basically, You would be introduced by somebody from somebody, or people would come to you. Today, people walking off the street, people are coming from all walks of life. There's, changes, Before we used to be in only sort of Judeo-Christian society in Europe. Now it's spanning to every country, every culture, people coming from all walks of life. So you have to think that things are changing in that way. Also, I was brought up with a very sort of strong ethics, my school, you didn't lie, you didn't cheat, was very, very, these things have all changed. People bringing different cultures, different ideas. And I think that also people don't rely anymore on their gut feeling. People need, it's like when you go to the doctor today. In the old day, the doctor, he used to look at you, he sees your eyes, he sees your face, and he knows something is wrong. Today, they throw you on a scanner, they want blood tests. They don't have the confidence in their own appreciation and in their own knowledge anymore. So it's the same thing with people, If you follow your gut feeling, really, if you follow it, you know who's good and who's not good. You know right away. You feel it. So that is something that you should develop. It doesn't lie if you're really truthful.
Yeah, Nikola Tesla was talking about the gut feeling and how it's more important than, let's say, a critical analysis.
I would tend to agree. But in today's world, people want, paper with facts and figures, I don't know how many of you have had this situation, and I think the medical world is really synonymous of this, where you'd have a doctor really needs to get, he won't say anything until he's got all his papers and every scanner and every
Or the
blood
medical
test.
check.
Yeah.
There's a benefit in that. I mean, they wouldn't be doing that unless it was benefiting.
I think it benefits the people who do it. The laboratories, I mean, we have blood laboratories making billions, and doctors and business and, the business world. Insurance business, absolutely. I mean, in my time, hospitals weren't, when I was a small child, hospitals weren't a business. Today, they're a major big business. Running and owning hospitals is a good business.
especially, nursing homes.
Here, Switzerland. Switzerland, and in France, where everything is paid by the social, social. Do you know how many people, when you go to have you ever been to a pharmacy in France?
Yeah.
There's like 10 people waiting there, because medication is subsidized by the government. So in the end, the industry of pharmaceuticals is making a lot of money. I mean, it's
That's just one industry.
it's just one industry. I think it's synonymous with most industries, but I would say that gut
Questions?
is.
Right. Any? Yeah, please.
Okay, so I have a question. You mentioned. Huh? Yeah. I said. Since you said that you were, if I remember correctly, you were interested in gemology, right? And at some point you wanted to go and study it, to learn it. At what point of life you wanted it? Like you said, you are interested in. So you international relations.
School, and I said, okay, acting. No. So I had a girlfriend. I was actually with a family who were an old jewelry family. I was involved with their son, and they invited me to Hong Kong to live with them for 6 months, and I started learning how to sort stones, and I got interested, and then I said, well, I'm going to go to America and go to the GIA,
Right.
and I did. But I really enjoyed it. It was fabulous. I loved it, and I think it's a fun thing to do, even if you're not in Jamal. It was a fun class. A lot of work though,
Right.
very intense. And in my day, it was 100% pass or fail. So if you failed an exam, you were out. Now they have a 75%. But in those days, if you failed like any exam, you had 3 chances. And if you failed all 3, you were
Right.
out.
That's it.
So it was quite demanding. Now it's less demanding.
Yeah, continuing on the topic of ethics, were there any moments in your professional career when you actually considered stepping over your beliefs, your principles, maybe your moral code?
I never had to. It's not a business where you have to lie or, or something. I try to be straightforward and honest. I don't see the point of being dishonest. And often, for example, like when you're doing import-export, I could say, okay, I can go buy some emeralds, for example, wherever, put them in my pocket and go through the customs and not declare them, right? And maybe I make a few thousand more dollars. But what happens if you get caught? Today, especially with the internet, you get caught, and then everywhere you go in the world, you have a mark against you.
Yeah, I don't know.
So, the downside can often be much more difficult.
Right. Yes. Yeah, Yannick.
Yannick?
What are some of the myths around entrepreneurship? The myths around starting your own business, did you find were right or completely wrong?
I think that one of the myths for me was that you can start in a small business and become a big business. I think that's a bit of a myth. I think that the people who do are few and far between.
Mm-hmm.
I think that when you start a small business, you're going to maybe stay in a small business, and you have to think about that. I think that's for me, because it's very difficult to go from a small business to a big business. It happens. We've seen it with Microsoft, and we've seen it with Apple and people who start in a garage, but it's not the norm.
Would
you want to?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind. I often thought, for example, one of the things that I could do is not to stay in Switzerland and to move my business to a state or a country where there's more people, like London, for example. If I was in London, I know that I've had a lot of requests. People, say, why don't you come to London and open something here? And it's true, it's a temptation. And I'm dealing with 8 million people in London and 450,000 in Geneva. So, I could be certainly more successful. But then I'd have to move there and,
It's also more competition.
Not necessarily. That's the interesting point.
There's more black market.
No, you see, the thing is, it depends what you do. Not necessarily. If you're for me, no, it's actually I would do much better and much bigger than I'm doing here, and I've let it go to the point that now other people may be doing what I'm doing. But I did have a plan.
But you know what I mean, like since for 20 years you still keep in that same location and that same business.
Yeah.
You really didn't have any like sort of like an impulse to say, look, you know, I want to open another chain store.
You know, it's the problem with the small business also is that you're dealing with yourself. Now, if I could duplicate myself and get somebody to do what I think and put them in London, maybe.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
You see?
So
But
you're
the problem
dealing
with small businesses is that you are the creator, you are the determinator of what you're doing. You are going to decide how and when and what you're going to sell. So if people come for you if you're in a small business. They don't come for your assistant, or they don't come because, you know, they come for you. You are the star of the business. See what I mean? So that's the problem a bit with the small business.
Please.
How, you know, storytelling is very important for building a brand. How do you tell a story in a small organization? How do you look at building a brand through storytelling?
Well, it's interesting because jewelry also is a place where there's a lot of storytelling, and I think that there's a bit of storytelling about the product. There is also the fact that a lot of the people I work with already have stories. So in a way, I can ride their coat wave. Like if you have very good brands, say for example, you're selling Adidas shoes. You use Adidas's, let's say, work or their news or whatever they use, you know, their formats, their social media, to improve your sales. And I'm very lucky. A lot of my people have very good social media, and I mean, we're all on, you know, Instagram, Facebook, you know, LinkedIn, whatever. And I think that is today, you know.
So your customers are helping you lead that.
My suppliers, my customers, I would say, you know, I have seen that I have like good marks, you know, on some of these sites, you know. I was quite surprised. People say there's an article about me I didn't even know about in L, you know. I am still trying to find out which L so I can buy this newspaper. So sometimes it's unbeknownst to you. I've been contacted by, you know, whether I was in the EasyJet magazine one year. I mean, I do not advertise. I must say this to you guys.
Right.
For small businesses, advertising is a waste of money. What you need is maybe develop something where you bring in your clients. For me, it was I do personalized events where I target specific people. To put an advertisement, for example, in the Vogue magazine, I'm going to be paying 16,000 francs for half a page. I can only afford maybe 1 or 2 weeks, you know. It's going to have no impact. If you, for example, you look at any of these, the first 16 pages, I don't know if any of you guys look at the girly magazines. Okay. Or Q, you know, GQ, I don't know if you want, look at, you will see the first 16 or 20 pages are big brands, Prada, LVMH. And you'll look at it and you'll go, oh, that's not so good. I don't like that bag. I don't like those shoes. After you've seen it 16 times, you'll go, oh, that's kind of bad. Maybe go out and buy that. So, you know, it's this, as they say in French, matraquage, you know, it's this continually getting at you. I can't afford it. As a small business, you can't afford it. So advertising, you have to be, what are you going to do with your advertising? Really private events, very, you know, maybe give gifts to, that's what I do, like to PRs and newspapers. I have a PR in Zurich, and every once in a while, she'll do an article for me, get my name in a newspaper. I give her a piece of jewelry in exchange, and she's very happy to do that.
That's not a bad business. Any other questions? Yes, Abby.
I had a question on diamond investing. I've been looking into it a bit, and I was hoping maybe you could shed some light on it, because it's a quite obscure industry. I noticed that the whole thing, it seems to be controlled by one major family that's holding the stock, and then, for example, I'll go to a jeweler ask them for an internally flawless 1.5 carat diamond with D color, and they'll tell me it's this price. But then if I go on their internal websites, which they use like a RapNet, I'll find the diamonds for exponentially cheaper, for very similar. And
Well, that's a whole, explaining a whole industry is going to take some time. I mean, I can give you, an insight quickly, is that it's like what I said about the emeralds. Diamonds are very specific today because they work with a price sheet, okay? The price sheet gives you an approximation. It is not, I can show you, the Rappaport list is a list that's published every month, and it tells you how much a carat is, 2 carats, 5 carats, okay?
But the prices are never equivalent to that.
Retail is approximately 2 to 2.5 times wholesale. Okay? If you buy a dress today or jacket, you're paying 2.5, sometimes 3% on net-a-porter. That is their markup at net-a-porter. 3 times what it comes to them at. It's not the cost price, because you have several. You have the maker, the distributor, the same thing on the diamonds. Rappaport list will give you the wholesale price. The retail price can go anywhere from 2.5 to a Cartier doing 1,000%. Their budget for publicity is $2 billion a year. Okay? So how are they going to generate that kind of income?
So it doesn't, on the Rappaport price list, it doesn't have the retail price.
No, that is wholesale. But you have to know that the Rappaport price is only suggestive. If, for example, there's a rush on that quality or that cut, the price will go up. Okay? Sure, go ahead.
All right. One last question. All right?
One last question, like can it be interconnected? I don't know. This question is just digits. What was the most expensive stone you've ever sold? If you don't, if it's not personal.
This is a good story because I bought a very expensive ring. My things start at 60 francs and they finish at 60,000. I don't go further than that because I'm interested in selling to people, a lot of people. So I had a very expensive ring and I bought it and then I started sweating because it was a lot of money in one stone. So it's a very famous designer. She's very well known all over the world. And so I said, well, I'll post it on Instagram. And I get back immediately a response for a woman in Japan saying to me, I'm coming and I'm going to buy this ring. Which, somebody on Instagram says that, you think they're a bit loopy. So I said, okay. This is not the most expensive piece, it's the most interesting though. So I said, okay, and I said, well, can we go out of the Instagram and go into, private email and back and forth? And she said to me, I'm coming on the Monday so-and-so from Japan to buy this ring. So of course, I don't work Monday, so I said, no problem, I will come and specially open for you, which I, was sitting there, I sat there, so I said, come at 11 o'clock. 11 o'clock, nobody. So I said, obviously this is a hoax. And then I get an SMS, she says, I'm on my way, I can't find the store. And she came specially for Japan, bought the ring, bought a few other things, and went back to Japan. So, but that's not the most expensive thing I've sold. The most expensive thing I sold was a 1-carat diamond for $62,000, and it is now worth 18.
Wow.
So it depends on the market. That's why you have to really know your stuff.
It's worth
18, yes.
18.
18, yes. Because at the time, there was a huge demand. It was at the time when people thought of diamonds as investments, and the market went crazy. It was almost like a pyramid scheme, And I sold a diamond for $62,000, a 1-carat diamond, which is now worth $18,000 a carat.
Now the market is quite low.
Very low.
So it's the time to buy now and maybe.
Don't look at diamonds as investment, unless you're buying that pink diamond. Okay, it's the same thing with anything, If you're going to buy an amazing car, if you're going to buy a Ferrari, right? People have, my friends who bought Ferraris today have cars that are worth $1 million, $1.5 million. They paid $100,000, but at the time, $100,000 for a car was like ridiculous. But if you bought a Volkswagen,
Right.
even the top of the range, it's worth not even a fifth of what you paid for it. So I would say to you, I wouldn't look at diamonds as investments. You buy them because you have pleasure out of them, or you want to give a gift to your fiance, or you want to give a gift to somebody. That's what it should be about. And today, as I said to you, my clients are specifically women with their own money who come in and want to buy jewelry.
And with these synthetic diamonds, what do you think it will affect the market?
It does. There's different types of synthetic. There's those who are completely emulating diamonds.
So it's uneven by GIA.
And these it's extremely difficult to know unless you're told. And these stones actually are almost as expensive as real diamonds. Okay, so they don't exist in big sizes for the moment, but this is the progression. But anything synthetic, I mean, cheap synthetic, that doesn't bother me.
Since we have a limited time, Jill, so I have one very little question, the last one, about the growth of your store. I mean, because all of them have this final assignment to talk about, they will single out a business and then doing them a growth strategy. So for your own business, what do you see in the next 5 or 10 years?
Well, hopefully, I think the internet will help me grow by being able to stay here and grow through the internet. That's one of the growth patterns. I think that one of the other things I'm doing, as I said to you, I'm in a phase now where I'm changing my focus. I'm going up market. So it means I'm investing in more expensive pieces, more risk, but the payoff is much higher. And I think that is really, when you're at a certain level, to go higher, that's where you have to go.
I see. All right. So thank you very much. And then it's our great pleasure and privilege to have you here.
Thank you. Nice meeting you all.